Welcome to our final module on conflict resolution. Having explored the sources of team conflicts and how team structures influence them, we're now ready to tackle the practical aspects of resolving them when they arise. As we've discussed, team conflicts can profoundly impact productivity, morale, innovation, and retention. Addressing these conflicts effectively is a critical leadership skill that can transform your team's performance and create an environment where people genuinely enjoy working together. In this module, we'll explore techniques for resolving different types of team conflicts, from technical disagreements to interpersonal tensions. We'll look at how to use retrospectives as a powerful tool for addressing team dynamics and discuss how to rebuild relationships after resolving conflicts. These practical approaches will give you the tools to transform conflicts from painful experiences into opportunities for growth and improvement. Let's begin by examining effective conflict resolution techniques you can apply in various situations. When conflicts arise within your team, having a toolkit of resolution techniques can help you navigate these situations more effectively. Different types of disputes may require different approaches, but several core techniques have proven valuable across various scenarios. Active listening is foundational to all conflict resolution. This means truly focusing on understanding what the other person is saying rather than just preparing your response. When team members feel genuinely heard, tensions often decrease immediately, creating space for productive problem solving. Practice reflecting back what you've heard to confirm understanding. You might say, "What I'm hearing is that you're concerned about technical debt slowing down future development. Is that right?" For technical disagreements, structured approaches often work best. Decision matrices can be particularly helpful in creating visual representation that lists potential solutions against agreed upon evaluation criteria. This shifts the conversation from subjective opinions to a more objective evaluation framework. For example, if your team is debating between two technical approaches, you might evaluate them based on criteria like performance, maintainability, implementation time, and scalability. Time-boxed proof of concept work can also resolve technical disputes when discussions alone become circular. Let the team explore and demonstrate competing approaches, then evaluate the results based on data rather than speculation. This honors the concerns of all parties while providing concrete evidence to inform the final decision. Whenever possible, use data to drive decisions. Invest in proper instrumentation and metrics to evaluate options based on empirical evidence rather than opinions or hierarchical authority. When team members see that decisions are made based on objective measures rather than personal preferences, they're more likely to accept outcomes, even when they differ from their initial position. Consider bringing in a neutral mediator when emotions run high or the conflict seems particularly intractable. This could be someone from outside the team who has no stake in the outcome but possesses strong facilitation skills. If formal mediation resources aren't available, you can still establish ground rules for a structured conversation. You might say, "We're going to give each person time to fully express their perspective without interruption. We'll focus on shared goals rather than personal grievances and acknowledge our biases openly while committing not to take things personally." Know when to escalate conflicts appropriately. If the disagreement is creating significant delays or affecting team morale, and your attempts to resolve it haven't been successful, it may be time to involve senior leadership. This is especially important if the conflict involves potential bullying or harassment. These situations shouldn't wait for a quarterly review, but should be reported to HR or appropriate leadership immediately. Throughout any conflict resolution process, maintain awareness of the relationships involved. Remember that human connections are at stake even when addressing technical or process issues. Be kind, listen generously, and share feedback honestly but respectfully. Frame your comments in terms of impact rather than intent. For instance, you might say, "When you interrupt during meetings, it makes it difficult for others to contribute fully," rather than, "You're being rude and dominating conversations." Technical and directional disagreements are common in product teams and often reflect genuine differences in professional judgment rather than personality conflicts. Handling these effectively requires specific approaches that honor the expertise and perspective of all involved while still driving toward resolution. When team members disagree about technical approaches, creating a structured decision-making process can prevent endless debates. One practical approach is establishing a racing matrix. which stands for responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed, for different decisions. This clarifies who has decision-making authority while ensuring appropriate input from others. For instance, your senior engineer might be the decision maker for architecture choices, but must consult with the product manager about business impact and other engineers about implementation considerations. It's also helpful to explicitly separate idea generation from evaluation. Many teams make the mistake of evaluating ideas as soon as they're proposed, which can shut down creative thinking. Instead, start with a divergent phase where all ideas are welcomed without judgment, followed by a convergent phase where ideas are systematically evaluated against agreed criteria. For disagreements about product direction or priorities, go back to first principles. What problem are we solving? For whom? And why does it matter? Often, directional conflicts stem from different assumptions about user needs or business goals. Exploring and testing these assumptions with data can help resolve the underlying disagreement. Time boxing discussions can prevent circular debates that consume excessive time without reaching a resolution. Set a clear time frame for discussion and invoke the predefined decision-making process if consensus can't be reached within that time. This might mean deferring to the designated decision maker or using a formalized voting procedure. I once worked with a team where two senior engineers had fundamentally different views about how to implement a critical feature. Despite multiple discussions, they couldn't reach an agreement. We implemented a simple decision document process where each engineer wrote up their proposed approach, including benefits, risks, and implementation details. These documents were shared with the broader team for input, followed by a final decision meeting. This structured approach ensured that both perspectives were fully considered while preventing the conflict from delaying the project indefinitely. For technical conflicts specifically, remember that perfect solutions rarely exist. Every approach involves trade-offs, and acknowledging these explicitly can help teams move forward. Rather than positioning options as right versus wrong, frame them in terms of their different strengths and weaknesses for the specific context. Retrospectives provide a robust framework for addressing team tensions and learning from conflicts. While many teams use retrospectives to improve their work processes, they can be equally valuable for improving team dynamics and conflict resolution patterns. It is incredibly effective to occasionally frame retrospectives specifically around team dynamics rather than just project outcomes. A simple prompt like, "Let's look back at how we worked together over the past 2 weeks and how we might improve," can open conversations about collaboration challenges. To address specific conflicts that have occurred, you can focus retrospectively on distinct incidents or patterns. For example, if a deployment went poorly and created team tension, you might frame the retrospective around that event by saying, "Let's discuss what happened with last week's release, how we responded as a team, and what we can learn from it." When conducting conflict-focused retrospectives, establish clear ground rules at the start. Emphasize that the goal is learning and improvement, not blame assignment. Remind everyone to focus on behaviors and systems rather than personalities, and to speak from their own experience using I statements. The start, stop, continue model is a handy retrospective format for addressing conflicts. Ask team members to reflect on behaviors or practices that the team should start, stop, and continue doing to improve how disputes are handled. This provides a constructive framework for feedback that focuses on future improvement rather than past grievances. Using anonymous feedback tools can be valuable for teams hesitant to speak openly about conflicts. I've had great experiences with tools like Retrium, which offers templates to explore team dynamics and psychological safety. These tools allow team members to provide honest feedback without fear of repercussion, which can be especially important when addressing sensitive conflict issues. After addressing conflict patterns in retrospectives, create specific, actionable items to address them. These include developing team agreements about communication preferences, establishing decision-making frameworks for different issues, or implementing regular check-ins to address tensions before they escalate. Measure your progress over time by periodically assessing team health using consistent metrics. Retrium and similar tools often include team radar charts that visualize dimensions like psychological safety, role clarity, and conflict resolution effectiveness. By tracking these metrics regularly, you can see whether your interventions improve the team's ability to handle conflicts constructively. Remember that retrospectives can sometimes become sources of conflict if not facilitated carefully. As a leader, pay attention to power dynamics and ensure that all voices are heard. Consider rotating facilitation responsibilities or bringing in external facilitators for particularly challenging topics. The most important aspect of using retrospectives for conflict resolution is following through on action items. Nothing undermines trust more quickly than identifying issues but failing to address them. Even if you can only make small improvements initially, demonstrating a commitment to change based on team feedback builds the foundation for healthier conflict resolution in the future. Addressing the immediate causes of conflict is essential, but rebuilding relationships and trust afterward is equally crucial. Without this step, teams may resolve specific issues while harboring resentment or hesitation, inhibiting collaboration in the future. Acknowledge the emotional impact of conflicts directly, rather than pretend everything is immediately fine once a decision has been reached. You might say, I know we had different perspectives on this issue, and these discussions were sometimes intense. I value your input and want to make sure we're moving forward in a good place. How are you feeling about where we landed? This acknowledgement demonstrates emotional intelligence and prevents unresolved feelings from festering. One of the most powerful ways to rebuild relationships after conflict is by helping team members develop shared experiences. Create opportunities for team members to collaborate on neutral projects or participate in team building activities, highlighting different strengths and fostering positive interactions. This helps reestablish a broader context for the relationship beyond the conflict. Emphasize shared purpose and values to reunite the team. Remind everyone of the broader mission you're working toward and how different perspectives ultimately serve that shared goal. This reframes conflicts as a natural part of pursuing something important together rather than personal disagreements. Document what you've learned from the conflict and how you'll approach similar situations differently in the future. This converts the conflict experience into institutional knowledge that benefits the entire team. For example, you might say, from this situation, we've learned that we need a clearer escalation path when technical disagreements reach an impasse. Here's the process we are establishing going forward. Create regular check-ins specifically focused on team dynamics and psychological safety. These might be brief pulse surveys or dedicated discussions in one-on-one meetings. Questions like, how safe do you feel expressing concerns or disagreements? And what could we do to make it easier to navigate differences of opinion? Celebrate examples of constructive disagreement when they occur. When team members model healthy conflict behaviors, like changing their position based on new evidence or collaborating to find a better solution than either had initially proposed, explicitly recognize these positive patterns. This reinforces the behaviors you want to see and demonstrates that disagreement isn't problematic when handled well. Finally, recognize that rebuilding trust takes time and consistency. A single conversation or team building activity won't immediately repair strained relationships. Leaders must demonstrate ongoing commitment to psychological safety, fair process, and respect for diverse perspectives. Each positive interaction gradually rebuilds the trust that may have been damaged during the conflict. One of the most effective ways to prevent destructive and encourage constructive conflicts is to explicitly establish team norms for handling disagreements. These shared expectations create guardrails that help team members navigate differences productively. Start by facilitating a dedicated session to develop conflict-related agreements as a team. This might include norms like, we disagree and commit. Once a decision is made after thorough discussion, everyone supports it regardless of their initial position. Questions before assertions. When disagreeing, we start by asking clarifying questions rather than making declarative statements. Critique ideas, not people. Focus feedback on concepts and approaches rather than personal characteristics. And address conflicts directly. Speak directly with the person you have a conflict with rather than discussing it with others first. Document and revisit these agreements regularly, especially when onboarding new team members. Having explicit, shared expectations makes it easier for everyone to recognize when interactions are veering into unproductive territory. Consider establishing different processes for different types of conflict. Technical disagreements might follow one resolution path, like time-boxed research followed by a decision document, while interpersonal conflicts might follow another, such as direct conversation with optional mediation support. Include guidance on when and how to escalate unresolved conflicts. Team members should understand what constitutes an appropriate escalation versus what should be handled peer to peer. Clear escalation paths prevent conflicts from festering while avoiding premature elevation of issues that could be resolved directly. These norms should evolve based on the team's experience. Schedule periodic reviews of your conflict agreements to refine them based on what's working well and what needs adjustment. This treats your conflict resolution approach as a product that improves through iteration rather than a static set of rules. Throughout this module, we've explored practical techniques for resolving team conflicts, from addressing technical disagreements to rebuilding relationships after conflicts have been addressed. We've seen how retrospectives can serve as powerful tools for learning from conflicts and improving team dynamics. And we've discussed the importance of establishing explicit team norms for healthy conflict. The skills we've covered are not just nice to have leadership abilities, they're essential competencies for anyone leading product teams. The ability to transform potentially destructive conflicts into opportunities for growth and innovation can dramatically impact your team's performance, morale, and retention. As you apply these approaches in your team, remember that conflict resolution is not about eliminating disagreements, but changing how they are experienced and leveraged. Healthy teams don't avoid conflict, they engage with it productively, using differences in perspective to create better outcomes than any single viewpoint could achieve alone. Start by assessing your team's current conflict patterns. What types of disagreements recur most frequently? How do team members typically respond to differences of opinion? Where might you introduce more structure or clarity to help conflicts resolve more constructively? Start by assessing your team's current conflict patterns. What types of disagreements recur most frequently? How do team members typically respond to differences of opinion? Where might you introduce more structure or clarity to help conflicts resolve more constructively? Even small improvements in how your team navigates disagreements can yield significant benefits. Remember that becoming skilled at conflict resolution is an ongoing journey rather than a destination. Each conflict presents an opportunity to refine your approach and develop greater insight into the human dynamics that shape our work together. By approaching these situations with curiosity, empathy, and structured techniques, you can transform conflicts from painful challenges into catalysts for growth and improvement.